CGB, buddy, it has been a minute, although it probably hasn't been a minute for the actual people watching these videos, but for you and I to actually get together and talk about some Yu-Gi-Oh cards. How you feeling, buddy? You doing good?
Hell yeah, man. It's good to hear your voice. It's good to be back doing what we do. And I'm really jealous of the viewers at moments like these because I see their comments and I know they watched these videos like a minute ago. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah, the comments just keep popping up. So you guys get to watch them and just go right into the next one. But we had to actually take, God, was it a month off?
It was about a month. Yeah, pretty substantial. Ooh. But we're back, and oh, buddy, are we coming back with a vengeance. So, we're going to be talking about a new summoning mechanic.
No!
Yay! Now, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you because the first card I'm going to show you is actually a card that you know. This is going to look familiar, okay? So take a look at this.
Abyss Dweller, yeah. Just when I think I'm getting a handle on things, we've got another freaking summoning mechanic. Just when I'm starting to get something. When I'm getting somewhere, man.
All right, so I'm going to help you out here. So this is what is known as an Xyz monster. It's spelled XYZ, but it's pronounced Xyz. Don't ask. It's the lore. That's just how it is. You can see it down there in the text box next to where it says Sea Serpent. That's what this type of card is. So I'm going to help you out. Remember with synchro summoning, you take two monsters on the field, you send them to the graveyard, you add up their levels, and you play Guy from the extra deck. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
So an Xyz monster is very similar. The difference is that instead of adding the levels together, you're going to do what is called overlaying. So in this case, if you look in the text box, Abyss Dweller requires 2 level 4 monsters. So if you were to have 2 level 4 monsters on the field, you would take both of them and physically overlay them on top of one another, then go into your extra deck, take this Abyss Dweller and place that on top of the stack of 2 level 4 monsters that you have. Those 2 monsters underneath the Abyss Dweller become part of the monster, and when you read the effect of Abyss Dweller here, it'll make sense because it's sort of how you activate the abilities of these types of cards. So it's actually very intuitive and pretty easy, I think, especially compared to synchro summoning, because if it's the same level, you put them on top of each other, you play Guy. You're not having to do math or anything like that. So why don't you give Abyss Dweller a read, and we're going to be going through some of these cards, and you have to figure out if they were strong enough that they, at any point, required being banned. So go ahead.
While this card has a ZEUS material attached that was originally water, all water monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach one ZEUS material from this card. Any card effects that activate in your opponent's graveyard cannot be activated this turn. It's 2 level 4 monsters, so to play it, you've got 2 level 4 monsters underneath it, and those had to be on the field?
Correct.
Okay. And yeah, you remove one and they can't use their graveyard, which is a big deal when your opponent is trying to do tier limit stuff. That's what
exactly.
I know.
That's how you know this, because in
that's
previous videos, you know what tier limit. I like how you know tier limit before you know Abyss Dweller. That's really funny, just for context. But
I bet it's really funny to someone. Is it funny to you?
Well,
Why is it
considering
funny?
Dweller came out in like 2012 and tier limit came out in like 2022, so it's like 10 years difference between these two cards.
Okay.
But
okay.
This is the only one of these cards you know, so I thought it'd be a good point to start with at least.
Yeah, it's a good friend we've got here. Okay, yeah, shut them graveyards down, and I guess so. When it brings the thing out from under it, do enters effects trigger?
So I guess I'll clarify there. So when it says to detach an Xyz material from this card, what that means is, so remember, there's 2 of them underneath the Dweller, right? When you're detaching, it goes to the graveyard. So that monster underneath is now in the graveyard.
It's not as good as I thought.
I mean, that would be broken if you were special summoning the thing out from underneath it. That would be crazy.
Sick? Let's go. Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 would love this.
Maybe you'll see something like that later. Later.
Okay. To the graveyard. Got it. And once things are not under it, do they still have the 500 attack? Let me read this again. When material attached that was originally water, all water monsters gain 500 attack. Do they lose the 500 attack when the things are gone?
Correct. Okay. So if there is not a water monster as material, then they would not gain the 500 boost.
Okay.
But it's still a monster. So even if you were to use Abyss Dweller's effect twice, it's still a 1700 attack point guy on the board. It just doesn't have any abilities at that point.
And
it's
this
just
is...
a vanilla.
And the 2 level 4 monsters thing is the only way to summon it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're fine.
But remember, it's in your extra deck. So at any point, if you have 2 level 4s, you're able to overlay them to make this. You don't have to have it in your hand or anything.
Okay, so if it's in your extra deck, you can do the merger anytime you have the requirements.
Correct.
So you just have
like
to
synchro
have,
monsters.
In your head, you just have to remember all the creatures in your extra deck and what the costs of them and when you can do them.
So you're only allowed to have 15 cards in your extra deck. And so you're going to strategically pick the best 15 cards for the deck that you're playing. And so for instance, if you're not playing a deck that has level 4 monsters, you're not going to play Abyss Dweller because you would never summon it, right? And you're going to see some of these with different levels as we go through them.
Are these
different ranks.
Are these all extra deck monsters?
Yeah. Every Xyz monster mechanically is in the extra deck.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We don't
Just
have
like
to draw
synchro
them.
monsters.
We just get them.
You don't have to draw them.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do I have to tell you if Abyss Dweller was banned?
You do. That's the objective.
Dang.
You know it's all play because you saw it in the Tier Elements videos.
It was
that I
the
showed
good
you.
guy.
Sure. Let's go with that. Yeah, the good guy.
It was the only thing that kept somebody from winning the game. The only thing. Although I guess now that I think about that match I watched, they were scooping because of Abyss Dweller.
Yep. Uh-huh.
Oh no.
The double-edged sword, that's for sure.
Well, I feel like we have this talk every video. It's, we sit down and we let's have a moment here. Let's really reflect. Is it
Sure.
about stopping people from doing the degenerate thing, or is it that people need to do the thing, and if they don't get to do the thing, they're going to be mad and stop playing the game, and all of their cards don't matter anymore, so you get rid of this so they have their time doing the thing. And then you bring it back later, and then they have to buy new cards anyway, or all the cards they bought don't work. I hate it because I don't know. This feels... seeing it in action was very impressive, but it was very impressive because the Tier Elements deck just kind of ended the game, and just shutting down somebody for one turn wasn't like a turn before they execute their strategy. It's you die now. And that seemed...
Yep.
Yeah, that seemed inherent of the Tier Elements deck. I don't know if that's inherent for Yu-Gi-Oh! Although in Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, I do wonder, because my God. But Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, I think about some of the cards I've seen, and they had answers to this that didn't require the graveyard. They had so many ways. Like, everything comes with also destroy a thing, So you can just knock this sucker out. So in Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, I bet it has a role, but I bet it's not nearly as good because it seemed like everything also removes a thing. So in the past, we're talking about, this was like a time walk in Magic, basically an extra turn, but you always killed them in that specific meta. Did they have to get rid of it? They had to ban so many other things to make Tier Elements bad. I don't know if they ever banned the Abyss Dweller. This feels honestly like a good safeguard to me. So we're going to start this off by shoving my own face into an abyss. And I'm going to say this did not get banned.
Final answer?
Yeah, final answer.
You are correct, CGB. Starting off strong. I will say, caveat, this actually just recently, at the time of recording, this got banned in the Asian territories on the last ban list, which we get every few months or so. And it wouldn't be surprising if they banned it for us in the TCG here as well, because this is a card. This is a card that people have wanted banned for quite some time because it is extremely oppressive. Like you saw in the Tier Elements matches that you watched. This card, unfortunately, has, like you were saying, the Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 problem. When this card was first initially printed, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was not nearly as fast as it was. And so if you got Abyss Dwellered in older Yu-Gi-Oh! When this card was first released, it sucked, but it wasn't the end of the world. There might be still a couple extra turns that you would still be able to play. And yeah, your turn after getting Dwellered might be shut down, but that might be fine. Or also, it might be an instance where not every deck is playing out of the graveyard. So Dweller, while you might have it in your extra deck, it might be good against some decks, but it's not good against every deck, or the instance of Tier Element it's good against exactly Tier Element, which is the only deck people were playing, so it saw widespread play as a result. But even now to this very day with like Ryziel and such, Abyss Dweller still sees play and it's very obnoxious. Its effect is what we call a lingering effect, which is even if Abyss Dweller is destroyed or leaves the field, its effect to prevent the opponent from using the graveyard is still active. The only way to stop it is if you were to negate it when they first activate it. So these lingering type effects, Max C is another example, right? These lingering types of effects are things that people really don't like because they, unless you have a way to respond to them immediately, they're very uninteractive and just not fun most of the time. So a lot of people want this card banned, and thankfully the Asian territories have finally just nipped this card in the bud. And maybe we'll see that here in the TCG as well. But for now, you got it correct. Abyss Dweller is unhit, and that's a good starting point for our Xyz adventure that we are going to take.
Oh, good.
You're doing good.
Whoa. Content creator. The people want your opinion. Should Abyss Dweller be banned?
I think so. I think it is a card that it's just a fragment of older Yu-Gi-Oh design, and the game has evolved to a point where I think Dweller's time is up. But that's my opinion. Everyone can fight me in the comments, so be it. Here's your next one.
Number 11, Big Eye. What is going on with your game? Level 7?
Correct.
2600 attack, 2000 defense.
I'll let you know, CGB, it's not a level with an Xyz monster. It's a rank. You got to know your terminology here. It's because the stars are on the left side, not the right side.
This is okay. What? Wait. Which they're on the left side instead of the right side, and now they're a rank. They have a whole different thing. Yeah. If you wanted more evidence that I still haven't actually played any Yu-Gi-Oh, there you go.
To be fair, the technical reason for that is because then you would be able to use the Xyz monsters for more Xyz monsters. But because then they would be level 7 instead of a rank. So then you could just keep stacking things on top of each other. But don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Spellcaster, Z's effect, 2 level 7 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target 1 monster your opponent controls. Take control of that monster.
I thought you'd like this one.
This card cannot attack the turn it's activated. Yeah, it's a control-y card right there, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's a permanent take control. It's not even until the end of the turn.
When did this card come out originally?
So we're going to be going chronologically here. This is one of the first Xyz monsters that was printed. So I will look it up, but I want to say it was 2012, 2013, maybe. It was 2012. I was right on the money.
For the love of God, it can't be that easy to get 2 level 7 monsters at the same time, can it?
I will help you out a bit. Assume for the purposes of this video, it is not difficult to get the requirements onto the field in order to overlay to make these Xyz monsters.
Okay.
You've seen some guy. Think about, this might come up later, but think about Kashtira Fenrir, your favorite card. Remember, you just summon him out to the field for free. He's level 7. So you could use that for this.
Yeah, sure. No problem. All right. So the year is 2020, and we're sending 2 level 7 monsters underneath this thing, playing it. It hits really hard, and then you take a piece of material off it. You gain control of their best thing. It's nasty. God, did it need to be banned? It feels like we've got costs here, right? So there's a risk. If something happens to the Big Eye here, I'm pretty sure you just don't get any of those pieces back. It's all graveyard, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
They're all technically attached to the monster. So if Big Eye goes to the graveyard, the materials underneath it also go to the graveyard as well. And you're right. I mean, we talk about costs or the lack thereof in Yu-Gi-Oh! All the time. Think about it. You have to take 2 cards to make 1. So you're losing a card in terms of card economy when you make these Xyz monsters or these Synchro monsters. So yeah, in a way, these do have costs. And then the detaching of the material is also a pseudo cost in a way as well. So yeah, we have costs.
So if you have 2 level 7 monsters and it's not the first turn, like, you would ideally like to do something with your 2 level 7s. Go punchy, right? And if you've already done that, does the opponent still have something good to yoink? Or is it like in Magic we call it, yoinking their thing, stealing their thing?
Good question.
Yeah, right? So, like, if you have 2 level 7 monsters and you wanted to do something productive with them, it might be, like, this might be a case of, like, if the game is going the way you want to, it's hard to steal something useful. Or like you don't get an attack with those 2 level 7s. You play this, you steal a thing, you attack for 2,600. Good number. But there is that safeguard. You can't attack with the thing you stole.
Well, you can't attack with the big eye. You can attack with the thing you stole.
You cannot attack.
I think you have it backwards.
The turn this effect. Oh, this card cannot. So the phrasing, this card is referring to number 11, the big eye.
Correct.
And not
Correct.
to, okay.
Correct.
If you don't steal something, you can attack with this right away. So if the opponent's board is empty, you can go bam with level 7, bam with other level 7, merge into this, bam for 2,600.
No, because you can only do these types of summons as a sorcery speed effect during either of your main phases. You're not allowed to do it mid-combat, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And you don't get another combat. Okay, and this isn't Hearthstone.
Correct.
You can't just split up in your turn when
Correct.
you attack
Now,
and when you
what
play
you
a spell.
could do... Correct. So what you could do is, hypothetically, you could have 2 level 7s, attack an opponent's thing, second main phase, overlay for Big Eye, take their third thing, and then maybe pass the turn from there or, do something. I don't know. But that's like a sort of kind of what you're getting at, but not, more following the rules of the game.
Yeah. So, like, it's like how likely is that? The turns in Yu-Gi-Oh! Do especially 2020 and later seem to be very big turns, so maybe that's more likely than expected. Given and if this gets removed, you still keep the thing you stole. I mean, it does have a cost, it does have safeguards. There are points where it seems a little awkward. I like it. I'm not immediately like, this has to be banned. I know people don't like their stuff getting stolen, but that's usually like a skill diff where casuals get really angry and like entrenched, hardened veterans are like, yeah, you stole my thing, whatever. We play through it is my general vibe. So the big eye... I haven't seen a lot of like steal your thing, use it against you, but there was enough. Like there was like just take a thing for a turn and then tribute summon it, like was something we covered very early that was banned back in the day. This is harder to do than that. I don't think it was banned. I
don't think it was banned. Ha ha ha.
Ha ha ha. Come on, control players like, yeah, let's go. Like it seems like the gloves are more off. I'm remembering what I remember, and I've seen some really powerful things. And this at least has safeguards and is a little bit like you have to hit requirements to play it. I imagine it feels bad, but I don't think it had to be banned. Big Eye's fine. Big Eye not bad.
Final answer?
Yep, that's it.
So one thing you might be forgetting, or maybe
God,
not
don't
realizing, a lot of these take control type of effects, we're talking about Change of Heart, Snatch Steal, etc. A lot of these cards were banned for a majority of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, just because taking control of something in Yu-Gi-Oh is something that, unless it has an incredibly steep cost attached to it, is really, really good. And that's why those cards didn't get unbanned until like the past couple of years, even though they were some of the first cards printed in the game. But Big Eye is totally fine. You're right. You got it right. It's everything you said. I think it's just a very well-designed card. This card has actually seen lots of play, as a matter of fact. In the initial stages, it actually didn't see a ton of play because there wasn't level 7s that were easily special summoned out to the field. But then eventually they printed an entire archetype of all level 7s that were easily special summonable. So Big Eye became one of the best cards for that deck. And even as recently as the past couple of years, the Kashtira deck, which you're somewhat familiar with, actually did play Big Eye, because it was all level 7s for the most part that were very easy to summon out, and having this as a way to steal your opponent's stuff is actually quite good. So even as of recently, this card actually has seen play. It's just a very good card. Not really much else to say. You're 2 for 2. Ooh. You're 2 for 2.
Yeah, game on, baby.
Someone went into the hyperbolic time chamber while I was away, apparently, because you apparently have upped your skills. Let's see what you think about this one.
Constellar help.
Pleiades.
Pleiades? Constellar Pleiades? What the?
They're all based off constellations. That's why they're Constellar.
Okay, sure they are. That's special. A light. Wait, it's not a level 5. It's a rank 5?
There you go.
Hey.
There you go.
Attack 2,500, defense 1,500, warrior Z. Wait, no. Gz. Ez. Pez.
Xyz.
Xyz. Effect. 2 level 5 light monsters. Once per turn, during either player's turn, you can detach one material from this card to target one card on the field and return that card to the hand. Ooh.
This is also a very blue card.
It is. It is a blue card. Back in the day, like when I did play limited competitive events, go and play sealed or booster draft, things like that, I was always like picking bounce spells really high, and people like laughed at me for it because everybody's like, bounce is not card advantage. Bounce is card disadvantage. I was picking the worst cards you've ever seen. There was some enchantment in like Odyssey that made you discard a card to return something to the owner's hand, and I was picking that, and people were laughing at me, and I'm like, just give me a bounce spell and I'll win the games. That's what I always said, and they were like, that card's terrible. I'm like, but it bounces something. I'm gonna win games. And it worked for me back in the day because people didn't get how amazing bounce effects are. You can bounce their thing, you can bounce your thing. You can turn bounce into card advantage if you use it well at the right time. And there's so many options. So like, especially in like, I mean, this is a whole rabbit hole, but when you bounce your card because you know in limited there aren't many ways to kill that specific card, and they use their maybe only removal spell they have that can deal with it, and you bounce it back to your hand and play it again, you're down tempo, but now that you have something unkillable, it's beautiful. I love bounce so much. This card is insane. Also, you know who hates bounce? The person getting bounced. Like, repeatable bounce pisses people off, and I bet the more special little summoning mechanics that there are, bouncing is a lot more effective if they have to get the pieces back together. I bet it's hard.
I will help you out a bit here because I think mechanically I would be leading you astray if I did not tell you how this works. If you are to target a monster that was special summoned from the extra deck with Pleiades or any sort of bounce effect like this that says return it to the hand, mechanically that card goes back to the extra deck. It doesn't go to the hand.
So you're telling me the card doesn't say what the card does?
Well, it does and it doesn't, right? Because extra deck monsters can't be in the hand due to the game mechanics of the game.
Sounds like propaganda.
Sure.
Sounds
but
like
I'm telling you, because
they love their extra special deck and they don't want anybody to harm it. That's what it sounds like to me.
But you have to, but when you're talking about the bounce spells being effective, this is almost the same thing as having to make them jump through the hoops to resummon it again, because the materials underneath that Xyz monster go to the graveyard. So they need to find new monsters to bring out to the field to resummon it back out. So in a way, it's sort of removal in quotes. So like I said, mechanically, I feel like it wouldn't be fair if you didn't understand that aspect of the game.
I think I also love the way that this card, like, you do the thing on your turn, and you can remove one piece to activate it, right? Bounce, like, maybe something that was their blocker, punch their face, and then on their turn, do it again. That's really sick. I like this card. When was this printed?
This was printed, what a great question. I think we're still in the early 2010s. This was printed 2013. We're a year later.
How much did it annoy people? This is definitely a card that gets better with a bigger card pool too. I mean, all of these do, but like specifically like a level 5, I imagine had to get completely filled out with the right materials. It does seem, honestly, like Konami's decent at this point at like just putting all the materials you need for the deck in the sets around it. Yeah, it seems like it. So, but man, things do get better over time. This card seems sweet.
I will say people love this card and people fucking hate this card at the same time.
Oh yeah, I am giving myself a Warshek test. Is that what it is? Is like yeah. I'm outing myself. You either love me or hate me after this one. Yeah, I'd be the person bouncing all over the place with this. Let me see. One card on the field. You can return this to its
your extra deck, hypothetically.
Your extra deck?
Yes. So if it, let's say it were targeted by something to remove it, if you didn't have any other good targets to bounce, you could just bounce it back to your extra deck so it doesn't go to the graveyard and then resummon it again on your next turn, hypothetically. It's pretty good, huh?
It seems delightful. It seems absolutely delightful. Things change. Honestly, tempo of this type, like bouncing, seems to get better when formats get really fast because much like the Abyss Dweller, when you buy a turn from death, you often can win on the next turn in powered formats. So this does get much more dangerous, but it does seem like in Magic, the Abyss Dweller is like a stacks effect, and this is more like a targeted interaction effect. It's not like those things have never been banned in card games before, though. In Magic, we have Divide by Zero that recently got banned, which was this like a bouncy effect that also gave you value. I mean, those things did invalidate very large creatures, like very large spells. Nothing worked against them because if it didn't do something on entry that was massive, it just got sent back to the hand and your investment was shot. This card in Yu-Gi-Oh, though, might not be... I like it. I like it a lot, but it might not be as oppressive as it is in Magic because while there are costs to things like the materials, there isn't a mana cost to thing. And the mana cost of thing in Magic is a big deal with getting your stuff bounced and getting your stuff remanded or divided by zero. And in Yu-Gi-Oh, if you can reassemble the pieces, again, it's free. Like, you can kind of get blown out if, like, you use this on the wrong thing and they're just like, oh, well, I had this and this, and it's right back, and now you're wrecked. So I think this card is...
But then you just bounce it again.
I mean, once per turn, my friend.
Yeah, you bounce it on your turn, and then when they try to do it again on their turn, you bounce it on their turn, right?
Sure. I don't know, man. I think this is an awesome two-shot card, and I can definitely see that people would hate this card. But that is, I don't know. This card seems, dare I say, healthy. The thing that worries me, the thing that worries me with the repeatable bounce effect is combos. And it does have the once per turn on it. So I feel a little safer about it. But when you can loop things back and forth and just do endless stuff, that's where it becomes very devastating. And this does say once per turn. I can't believe I'm going 3 in a row. And this one is the one I love the most. Okay. So that probably means it's the most likely to be banned. But I'm still going to say not banned.
You're 3 for 3, CGB. You are correct. Pleiades is actually a perfectly fine, healthy card. It's actually just a very above-average good card. I knew because of the bouncing effect and everything I've learned about Magic, I was trying to see if I could get you with this one, but you did not take the bait. Pleiades is phenomenal. I think the thing that really holds this card back is the fact that it requires level 5 light specifically. That's one thing, again, when I talked to you before about how Yu-Gi-Oh! Sort of divides its colors into archetypes sometimes. This is an example of, like, with the attributes of the cards. In this case, it's light. This is an advantage to play light cards, right? Because if you can facilitate level 5 light monsters, you get to play Pleiades. And that's a huge buff if you're able to play this card. Any deck that can play this card would. It's just not very common that there's good level 5 light monsters that are meta relevant. The most recent example I could think of was probably Eldritch back right around when COVID started. But aside from that, that's probably like the last time this card really saw play, just because it sort of naturally fit into the deck. But there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do with it. You can bounce back opponents' extra deck cards. You can bounce back your own cards to reuse them again, potentially. You can do things like, if your opponent goes set a trap card face down and end their turn, before they pass their turn in the end phase, you can bounce the trap card back to their hand, so now they can't use it on your turn to potentially stop your plays. A lot of really cool stuff you can do with this card. Phenomenally designed card, but yeah, just a really good card. It's not banned. Never, like I said, you're never, like, excited to play against Pleiades. It's very annoying, but it's never like you'd much rather hate Abyss Dweller than Pleiades, for sure. But you're on a roll. We gotta pick some harder ones here. Let's see what you think about this one.
Daigusto Emeral.
It's pretty good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Rank 4, attack 1800, defense 800. What is this color thing? It's not dark. What is that? I can't read it.
That's a wind.
Wind. Okay. Wind. Okay. Rock. Okay. Rock XZ effect.
There you go.
Level 2 for 2 level 4 monsters. Once per turn, you can detach an XZ material from this card, then activate one of these effects. Target 3 monsters in your graveyard, shuffle all 3 into your deck, then draw 1 card. Target one non-effect monster in your graveyard. Special summon that target. What is a non-effect monster?
So a monster that does not have an effect. So think about just anything that would just have flavor text in it and has no abilities.
Does that get used?
Sometimes. Yep.
Huh. You play textless things in this game where
We
you
do.
can have endless text on everything? Crazy.
The only reason you would play textless cards, as you're so calling them, is because there are other cards in the game that either there's an advantage to playing the textless card. So, for instance, there's a card that says special summon we call them normal monsters. There's a card that says special summon a normal monster from your deck, right? So it's a way to get a free guy out onto the field. So that way you have material to use for a synchro summon, an Xyz summon, tribute summon, whatever. Or there's a card like this that says, oh, if your deck's already playing these non-effect monsters, now you have a way to just get that guy out onto the field for free. There's also cards like Brilliant Fusion, not that you need to know what that is, but that card requires you to play a non-effect monster most of the time in order to fulfill that card's effect, essentially. So we have cards, you play the normal monsters because they facilitate extremely strong cards that you want to play. So it comes at the cost of making your deck less consistent, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. Since it's worded this way that you can detach one material from this, then activate one of the effects, does that mean you can remove one of these textless things, it goes to the graveyard, then bring it back onto the battlefield?
That's a good question. So you are allowed to do that if you already have another normal monster in the graveyard prior to doing that. So if that is the only normal monster that you would detach, the answer is no. But if you already had one in the grave and then detach a normal monster, you can pick either.
That seems so weird.
It is weird.
Okay.
Yes. That's just a mechanically Yu-Gi-Oh thing.
I wonder what it's like trying to introduce the whole magic stack to somebody. All right. You can detach one. The shuffling 3 in your graveyard, shuffle all 3 into your deck, then draw.
You already know card draw comes at a premium in our game.
It does. And also, if there's a way to mill out your deck, you're drawing one of those 3 and you're allowed 3 copies of a thing. So it's almost like drawing whatever in combo land. I wonder, when did this come out?
Not too much later, I want to say. This card came out in 2013.
There are some combo alarm bells. You can detach once per turn. It still has that limiter. But yeah, the idea of somehow emptying your deck and then shuffling the perfect 3 monsters in and then maybe comboing out or doing something gross is there. It's available.
Okay.
There's also just the raw, boom, here's the material. It is limited to windy stuff. Or no, it's not. It's limited to level 4s.
Level 4s.
Okay.
And to be fair, level 4 is the most common level of monster that you're typically playing in a deck.
Okay, so it's not quite as limited at all.
Yeah.
Getting cards is a big deal. The stats are perfectly acceptable at about the level 4, but it's
this is
2
pretty
level
average
4s.
for a rank 4.
It doesn't deal with the board, which is something that's been kind of a constant lately for these kind of things that you summon together. I don't know. There's a few alarm bells, but they're not glaring. It feels like a perfectly good value piece, but if it doesn't deal with something on the board, and it definitely has a cost. You have to have 3 monsters in your graveyard to get 1 card drawn. So that is a cost of its own. And you had to put 2 level 4 monsters under this. Those aren't in your graveyard. One of them
correct, because they're under the
from
emerald.
paying the cost, but you'd still need 2 others already there. So it's not like it's just straight up here's a thing, I draw a card. You do have to set that up. And say that you don't have that set up. The other effect also needs some amount of setup. You've got to have some amount of setup. Now, I know the graveyard's like a second hand, but this doesn't have a glaring, busted thing to me. It seems like a support player, but I feel like looking at the other cards that they covered a lot of bases, and this feels like it covers specific bases, and they might be things that you can do regularly. It might be a regular part of decks, but I don't see anything glaring to me. Nothing terrifying. So I'm interested to see what you tell me, but I'm gonna say right now that this is a really good role player card. It gets you card advantage, but it doesn't seem like it can be whole thing your deck is about, unless there's specifically a combo that mills your whole deck, and then you put the 3 exact monsters in there and you win the game from this. And if that is what's going on, the problem are the cards that are milling your whole deck, and I think those got banned. So I'm going to say this is not banned.
Final answer.
Yes.
The streak has come to an end, ladies and gentlemen. You are incorrect, CGB. So I will say, at the present moment, it's not banned. It's limited to 1, I believe my memory serves. But it was banned for quite some time. So let me give you some context here. On release, Emerald was a perfectly fine card. Typically, how Emerald will function is, remember, you have your extra deck of 15 cards. So you have some just options to toolbox into as needed. And typically, like mid to late game, you'd find yourself in a situation where you've got like a pretty full graveyard. If you find yourself in a situation where maybe you can't kill the opponent, but you want to put yourself in a very strong position, you would go into an Emerald, shuffle some stuff back, draw a card. It's like you drew 2 cards for the turn because you drew your first card at the beginning of the turn. And then you're giving yourself more resources if you're both in like a low resource situation to pull yourself ahead. Maybe you get a trap card that locks out the game. Maybe you get like a really strong hand trap, what have you, right? I mean, Emerald's just a card to sort of, if you can't kill them, it sort of seals the game in a way that you're just going to kind of overwhelm them with card advantage. Because if they don't answer the Emerald, you get to draw 2 on your next turn, and then, again, by Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards, having that many cards up on your opponent, it's game over. You're not recovering from that. So that was his role initially. Then we get into the situation where people figured out how to really abuse Emerald, because while, yes, Emerald only says once per turn, that is what we call a soft once per turn. It does not say you can only use the effect of Daigusto Emeral once per turn. So hypothetically, there is a world where you use a copy of Emerald, draw a card, get Emerald into the graveyard, summon a second copy of Daigusto Emeral from your extra deck, shuffle the first copy back into your extra deck, draw another card, and hypothetically, you can infinitely loop Daigusto Emeralds over and over and over again to basically just do whatever you want at that point. So, on like the lesser degenerate side of things, there was combos on the very first turn of the game where you could start like +6 cards over your opponent if you went uninterrupted, which is kind of ridiculous. And then on the further end of degeneracy, there was FTKs that Daigusto Emeral enabled because you basically just had infinite draw and you could just cycle, indefinitely. And so as a result, Daigusto Emeral got banned, and now it's at 1 copy, which is fine because you can't loop it infinitely, essentially. And it's just a really, really crazy card. It's a just fantastic card by Yu-Gi-Oh! Standards.
Wow. It makes it sound like it was like some kind of inevitability engine in a long game.
Basically.
And now I've like trained my brain that Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't have those because of the modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff.
To be fair, yeah, it's more of a Yu-Gi-Oh! 1 card in a lot of instances, but then as the game evolved and became a lot faster, people found ways to abuse a card like this that's definitely older. It doesn't have the hard once per turn text on it, and so that's why it kind of fell into... It's sort of like Abyss Dweller, right? Where it's an older card, and then because of the way the game evolved, it just became more degenerate as a result. But that's a lot of, eternal format nonsense at the end of the day. All right. You're still doing good. You're still ahead. Let's see what you think about this guy.
If it says draw a card, I'm just going to say it's banned. How about that?
To be fair, I think that's fair. It's like when I say it's banned because it's blue.
Nah. Mecha Phantom Beast Dracossack. Why is there an airplane with a tail and Discover like 1980s space shuttle thing riding it, but it has wheels? What the hell?
Yu-Gi-Oh's great, isn't it?
They
should have put this in Aether Drift.
I don't know. Sure. Why not? They'd love it.
I'll wait till you read the effect.
Nope. Rank 7, 2600, 2200. Machine, XZ, effect, 2 level 7 monsters, all the things. Once per turn, you can detach 1 XZ material from the card to special summon 2 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens. Machine type Wind, level 3, attack 0, defense 0. While you control a token, this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. Once per turn, you contribute 1 Mecha Phantom Beast monster. Then target 1 card on the field to destroy that target. This card cannot attack during the turn you activated this effect. Okay.
If you want the token, I sent that to you as well.
Oh, thank you. That's
It's just a little cute guy.
Oh my god. Yeah, it actually is just a little cute guy. After the nonsense I was looking at, this actually looks very normal. This card can be used. Oh, thank you. If you hadn't specified, I wouldn't know what to do with it. If used for another token, apply that token. Okay, sure. Whatever. Man, it's one of the like board in a boxes from Magic where you play one thing, but it's actually 3 things. But you have to give
And it could be 5 things if it lives a turn.
Once per turn, detach a material. There are 2 of them. Special summon 2 of them. Yeah, on top of stuff. This thing can't be destroyed unless you get rid of the little tokens. Mm-hmm. And then once per turn, you can make 2 tokens as long as you got some. So, like, gosh, I'm picturing like this in multiples because it's a rank 7. It's not a level 7. This can't special summon another copy of itself, right?
Correct. It's just special summoning the tokens.
Okay, I'm figuring that stuff out. Still, oh man, you buy yourself some time. They get rid of the tokens, like you can reload this, bounce it, bring it back, play another one. Just keep making tokens. Sounds so annoying. And it's like you have to kill the tokens because they can also just destroy targets.
Yep.
So it's not like you can ignore the tokens that just sit there being 0/0s. They actually wreck things. There are a lot of cards like this, and they do tend to get rather loved in Magic of the things that just make more things. But these particular things are particularly destructive. It's not often you can just pitch the little things that came with it to destroy stuff unless you have other cards that do that. And this is all contained in and of itself. That's crazy. That's gotta be annoying. It's gotta be dude, it's a lot to get through, right?
It is.
I mean, if you're talking about making the game take a little longer, I bet this does. It's probably a lot harder to OTK somebody through 1 or 2, through like this and some tokens.
Correct. It is.
Is that good for the game or is that bad for the game?
I don't know. I'll tell you after.
Seems pretty good for the game to me. I'm not.
This is I want to say this is 2013 or 2014 because I know you're going to ask me that next. 2013. Yep, 2013.
It's an older Yu-Gi-Oh. I think they actually liked these end games. I bet this was it was very fun to go against this over and over and over and over. But there's probably the answers. I mean, just you can AoE stuff, right? That works. You destroy everything on the field, this goes away.
The tokens die, Dracossack stays alive.
You're making me think this got banned. I don't know. The vibes of not even being sure how those interactions happen sound like they were just like, all right, everybody's doing this, get rid of it. This is making games a nightmare. Both sides are playing this and making more of these and making more of these and just playing another one and another one. That's the vibe
I checked the official rulings. Yes, that's how it works.
Okay. Hey, you have a place.
Okay, so the reason for context is because I did not get back. I was taking a hiatus during this time, so I only got back into playing like right after this card. So I didn't like have the full-on experience of playing against this all the time. So that's the reason.
Is this why you took a hiatus? Is it the Mecha
this is not the
Phantom
reason I took a
Beast
hiatus. No.
Dracossack?
This is not the reason.
Okay,
No. My hiatus was 6 years prior to this.
Okay, fair. I mean, I just picture like 3 of these in all the decks and just going back and forth with, I make these, I blow up these, I kill these, I make more of these, I go.
That's really interesting you say that. That's really interesting you say that.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Okay.
It sounds like a real pain in the ass because if card draw is at a premium, this is card advantage on the board, and it just keeps happening. And you have to deal with every bit of it. And it honestly doesn't feel like Yu-Gi-Oh has all the resources to deal with all of this. Like, this might be out generating resources for the game, aside from like crazy max C turns and stuff. Like it just feels like the card draw is so rare that, like, oh my gosh, this does feel like a nightmare. I'm gonna say restricted because I think that would solve a lot of problems, because I think what's dangerous about this card is everybody runs 3 and they just, as soon as you finally get through one and you like spend so many resources on it, they just play another and it's like, fuck. So restricted is my take.
So not banned. Because I don't care about if it's restricted or not. You don't think it's banned or not banned, CGP? You're not getting like bonus points.
I think one's not the worst, but I could be wrong. Not banned.
Okay. Not banned?
Just restricted.
You got it. You're correct.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
Oh, man. So, all right, let's give you some context around Dracossack. Everything you said is pretty accurate. So, Dracossack was pretty much the hallmark card around this time. That was the centerpiece of what was the best deck and what is actually considered one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh decks of all time prior to Tier Element existing, called Dragon Rulers. Maybe I'll show you those one day. But basically, in short, there are a bunch of level 7s that can easily special summon themselves out to the field, which means Dracossack was very easy for them to make. Dracossack was a secret rare, which is the highest rarity in the set, and as a result, Dracossack was like $200 a copy because basically, this was like one of the, if not the best card that you could be playing. Your opening turn 1 play would typically consist of bringing out 2 guys, make Dracossack, make 2 tokens, and you're pretty much like off to the races at that point. And you can have multiple Dracosacks for follow-up turns. The deck also played big guy. So what would happen is sometimes is you'd go turn 1 open with Dracossack. Your opponent could make a big eye, steal your Dracossack, then detach the material and summon 2 tokens on their field. Now they have Dracossack and the big eye, and this is actually what a lot of people consider to be some of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was very back and forth. It was very skill intensive. I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't play during this time because even though a lot of people got priced out of this format because of how expensive it was, historically, it's very easy to pick a lot of these cards up now, so people have kind of been able to re-explore this format, and as long as you don't mind playing the mirror match, because similar to Tier Element, that's kind of what it was, it's a very fun and interesting mirror match just because there's a lot of counterplay, there's a lot of just really cool stuff you can do, and Dracossack was sort of the piece that brought it all together, and very powerful card, very pushed card, but never got banned. They actually ended up banning a lot of the other cards in the archetype, and as a result, the deck sort of fell out of playability, and Dracossack just kind of fell to the wayside because if the deck that was playing it was no longer playable, then you don't need to ban Dracossack. So, yeah, just a phenomenal card, and actually has seen modern play as well because of the token producing ability that has actually come up for several reasons that we won't get into for this video, but still good enough to see modern play, which is how you know the card is very powerful, very powerful.
Wowie, what a ridiculous card! What a ridiculous art!
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. It's kind of crazy, but people love it. People love it. Okay, next card.
Number 101, Silent Honor Arc. Water, rank 4, 2100 attack, 1000 defense, Aqua, XZ effect, 2 level 4 monsters. You can detach 2 XZ materials from this card, then target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls in face-up attack position. Attach it to this card as a face-up XZ material. You can only use this effect of number 101 Silent Honor Arc once per turn. If this face-up card would be destroyed, you can detach 1 XZ material from this card instead. Okay, so you play it. There's 2 things under it. You detach the 2 things. The opponent's special summoned face-up attack position monster goes under this. And then when you try to destroy this, instead that monster goes to their graveyard, in theory.
So a very unique removal effect.
Yeah. Is this the hard once per turn?
That is the hard once per turn, yes. So you would not be able to summon a second Silent Honor Arc in the same turn. And, well, you could summon it. You just can't use the effect.
You do have to target the thing. And it can only be a special summoned monster. But there's everything special summoned.
I would say, if anything, the attack position is more of the qualifier here than if it was special summoned.
And also, it doesn't destroy it. It makes it a material. Mm-hmm. So if there was something that prevented destruction, if you were using a Silent Honor on a Silent Honor, the preventing it wouldn't work? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
That was actually not uncommon to see when this card was printed.
Yeah, I imagine it's not a common line of text.
Or, for instance, Dracossack, right? Dracossack has the protection from being destroyed by battle or card effects, but it doesn't say anything about being targeted. So if they left their Dracossack in attack position, you could just suck it up with Silent Honor Arc.
Well, then you've got to have this card around. It's a unique removal effect. It feels like
Final answer?
Almost. It does feel like a very legit role player, you know? It does. Like this, you've got to have the answers to the weird situations, or the weird situations become the whole, like, if in a meta, when you find the thing that basically gets around all of the potential removal the opponent's played, the game just becomes around that thing. So you got to have answers. If there's no answers, the meta's homogenous. I don't know. Right now, like, I'm going to read it again, but right now it looks fine. I don't have a reaction to this that upsets me per se. I bet it's annoying, but you only get around the destruction once. The attack is high. It's a good attack, but it's not insane. The defense is pretty low. So going to battle with this, a lot of things would kill it. So let's see. What is busted here? I mean, it's good. I'm not saying it's not good. It's very good, but what's busted? Target one special summon monster your opponent controls. And it does have those guardrails. It has to be face-up attack position. I imagine many are. I imagine many are, but it is a very specific thing. You attach it as material. It's limited to once per turn, a hard limit. If it would be destroyed... I mean, the fact that you can take something and it doesn't go to their graveyard might just take them off a key piece indefinitely.
Very perceptive.
That still seems like a good thing to me because, again, I'm like, don't just play solitaire and get away with it. I think that the game is better when you can keep people from just getting away with playing solitaire. So it's good that you can take away a key piece and they can't get it back until they deal with this. And some decks just might not want to run much removal, although I'm sure in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, when removal's attached to everything, that's easier. I'm not going to say this got banned. I love it. But this is a not banned, just good old friendly card. Everybody loves this card, I bet.
Final answer?
Yeah.
You're correct.
Okay.
You are correct. Silent Honor Arc is a phenomenally designed card. I love that it has just a very unique way to remove stuff from the field that sort of plays around protection from destruction or things like that. It's one of those cards that, especially when it was first printed, when it was very popular, it's one of those cards that really forces people to play a certain way because people would specifically special summon their monsters in defense position to avoid getting sucked up by Silent Honor Arc on the crackback. So, for instance, if you wanted to Dweller your opponent, you might Dweller in defense mode so that they don't suck up the Dweller on their turn, so that way they have to find another way to take care of Dweller by other means, right? Whether it's combat or any other thing. So I just love just the design of this card overall. It just does a lot of really cool things. I wouldn't say it's, you know, when they use it on you, it's annoying, but it's no one really, I feel like, has gripes with this card. I think it's just a very well-designed card for what it's worth. So you got it. You got it. All right. Speaking of well-designed cards, what do you think about this one?
Can't tell if sarcastic. True king of all calamities. Rank 9?
Correct.
Okay, dark monster. Attack 3000, defense 3000. Worm. XZ effect 2+. Okay, I'm assuming you can 2 or more level 9 monsters.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah,
so
how
it's
many
2
have you
minimum,
got?
but you could do more.
Yeah, how many you got? Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach one material from this card and declare one attribute. This turn, all face-up monsters on the field become that attribute. Also, all monsters in your opponent's possession with that attribute cannot activate their effects or attack.
You can stop there. The last line of text isn't relevant for this.
Oh, cool. Let me read it again then. You can detach one material from this card and declare one attribute. This turn, all face-up monsters on the field become that attribute. Also, all monsters in your opponent's possession with that attribute in their possession. I have not heard this phrase. Does this mean cards they own?
Correct.
Okay. So it goes into their extra deck. It goes into their special deck. It goes into their side deck. It goes into their binder. It goes into their desk drawer at home. It goes everywhere and says, "You're all the thing." I broke him.
No, I'm listening. I'm here.
Okay. He's checking right now in the desk drawer to see if the cards have been changed their attribute. Cannot activate their effects or attack, huh? You told me, for the purpose of this video, to assume that the cost's worth that hard. It's 2+ level 9 monsters. You're telling me they just has this all the time?
Eternal format, buddy.
Oh
Eternal
my god.
format.
Okay. Once per turn. At least if you get this on the field and your opponent doesn't quick effect, hand trap, somehow get rid of it before their turn, then you activate this. And it makes it so all of the monsters can't use their effects or can't activate their effects or attack. What about entering the field effects?
That is, so we don't really have this gray area of entering the battlefield. If a monster has an effect that says when this card is summoned or normal summoned or special summoned, that activates on the field.
So that is activated. Because in Magic, we have triggered and activated, and they're different. And
correct.
And
so
things
that would
entering are triggered, but there is no difference here.
So it would be triggered if it says when this card is summoned, but for the purposes of this, activated or triggered doesn't matter. It's any effects.
It stops all of it.
Correct. And so for the purposes of possession, think about cards in their graveyard, in their banished pile, things that are like, yes, technically it could like theoretically permeate any part of the opponent's possession, but it's primarily like the public knowledge areas, if you will. So you would want to, for Calamity's sake, let's say your opponent's playing a deck that is all dark monsters, let's say, because Calamities is dark. While yes, everything that's on the field also becomes that attribute and then would be subject to Calamity's negation effect. Anything that is also in the graveyard and in the banished pile would also be subject to the negation effect if it's also dark, because it's only making the things on the field become that attribute. So if they're playing like a 2 attribute deck, you kind of have to pick which one makes the most sense for like things you're trying to stop. But if they're playing a mono attribute deck, it's going to hit literally everything. So just to give you a bit of context there.
Jesus, dude. It's also one-sided.
Yep.
So if you activate this on your turn, their hand traps don't work. And all your stuff becomes one type, so there's combo potential there.
The name is befitting of the card, that's for sure.
Oh my God. You don't get to play the game can't be a good thing. It has to be bad.
Why? That's like your MO as a control player. What do you mean?
Nah. Like, dude, for like the health of the game, oh my God. Like this thing hits the battlefield, and at that point, it's as a quick effect. So if your opponent does the thing and they put something in Magic terms on the stack, they're summoning a monster, you can respond with this, and its effects just don't happen. Holy crap!
Well, to be fair, it says cannot activate their effects. So in that instance, you would actually, I think that effect would still resolve. So technically how you'd want to use this is you do it preemptively just so they don't get the opportunity to. Yeah, because the way it's worded, it says cannot activate their effect. So if the effect is already activated and you chain this, I think the effect still would resolve in that instance, but then every other effect after wouldn't work. But so typically the pattern is if you get this guy out, your opponent draws for their draw phase, you just fire this immediately. So they don't get really an opportunity to do anything.
Oh my God, what a monster. What a beast.
Literally.
So, the question then is like, is that what a level 9 that costs 2 level 9 is supposed to do? And this is so much easier to gauge in Magic. Because if it were a 9-mana card, I'd be like, that's what a 9-mana card's supposed to do. You get 9
like that should win you the game.
You're supposed to win. Yeah, it's supposed to be a game wrecker. Absolutely. And then, but we have that Yu-Gi-Oh thing where it's like, yeah, just assume you have 2 level 9s. And I'm like, well, if you can just have that, isn't this busted as, like, what the fuck? If you just have 2 level 9s, how is this not insane? How is this not the stupidest card? Like, if Abyss Dweller, oh my God, we can't use our graveyards? And then you have this, it's like you can't use monsters. Monsters. Not only that, it's 2+. Why is it 2+? Are you telling me there are situations where you have 4 level 9s and you lock them out for 4 turns?
For context, the True King archetype has, I want to say all the True King archetype monsters are level 9. So that's kind of with the gimmick of the archetype. So there is a world if the game were to last several turns, if you had 3 or 4 level 9s as material, you could fire this effect on your turn, your opponent's turn, your turn again, your opponent's turn again. I'm just saying, that's kind of like the gimmick here. This is supposed to be like their boss monster.
It feels like it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be the end of all things, the boss monster. God, man. if I'm supposed to assume that you can have multiple level 9 monsters and that this is an extremely playable thing, it feels like I'm supposed to say this card is too busted and it got banned.
Okay.
So clearly this card is fine. All right, how do you deal? If a card like this is ubiquitous and a bunch of level 9s are ubiquitous and it's a big Timmy, summon big things and then pay it off with this big thing deck, then you turn to the other card types. You turn to the trap cards and the spell cards, right? And you have to negate this somehow. And I imagine it is a bit of a blowout if the opponent puts a lot into this to get trapped or spell carded. And I bet that's the balance. I might be an idiot.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's not banned.
Final answer?
Yes.
Oh, CGB, you've learned nothing. This card is so banned. How could you have fallen into the trap? No!
Imagine thinking there are other types in your game to solve problems.
Oh my God. So, okay, let's give you the context. So on release, Calamities was considered to be, I don't want to say it was considered to be fine. The issue was, although the True King archetype was the means to which you could probably summon Calamities the easiest, the rest of it was kind of all in on Calamities, and that was really all it had going for it. Later on, several years later, another archetype came along called Virtual World and had access to level 9s very easily, and that deck was good, and then Calamities took it over the top because now you had this insane turn 1 play to basically just auto-win the game if your opponent doesn't have an answer to it. And so essentially, this card just became one of the most annoying cards in the game and got banned not long after because Calamities is just a fucking mess of a card. And it was not a matter of if, but when this card was going to get banned. It was just, it needed the shell really to push this card over the top. And yeah, people despise this card. This card is hated by basically everyone except like the 2 people who like playing the deck that facilitated this. But man, this card is not okay for the game. This is so uninteractive and unhealthy. You were on the right track and you just veered into the brick wall. What happened, buddy? What happened?
I don't know. I just thought they'd do. I just thought it would make them play a spell for once in their life. What do I know?
The problem is Yu-Gi-Oh! We're starting to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! 2 territory, and it's just so monster effect dense that it's rough. It's really, really rough. But it is what it is. All right, we got 2 more. 2 more. We're pushing the envelope on how crazy a card can be.
What can I say? I'm feeding you thumbnails. That's what I'm doing.
You are. That is
true.
Getting
content farmed. I know how this works. What the hell is this? Looks different. It looks so different.
It's because the picture quality is awful. Thank you.
Sky Thunder. Divine Arsenal AA-ZEUS. It's like we're doing Avas, we're doing mechs now. What the heck?
Yep.
All right.
We're doing mechs now.
Attack 3000, defense 3000, machine XZ, 2 level 12 mod. It's only getting worse.
I will let you know that will not matter when you read the first line of text.
How can I tell if it's rank or level?
On this one, it's because the stars are black, is how you know. Because they're black with gold. Yeah. Typically, they look like Dragon Balls, as Voxy calls them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Once per turn, if a XZ monster battled this turn, you can also XZ summon Divine Thingy-Majiggy by using one XZ monster you control as material. Okay, so this is a different summoning
So
mechanic?
it's still an XZ summon. Basically, if, let's say you had Abyss Dweller or Daigusto Emeral or whatever, if that declared an attack this turn, then in your second main phase, you can just overlay Zeus on top of that monster. So it's still like an Xyz summon, but it's an Xyz summon over another Xyz monster.
Transfer its materials to the card. Quick effect, you can detach 2 materials. Send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. Okay. Yeah. Once per turn, if another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can attach 1 card from your hand, deck, or extra deck to this card as material. Oh, it has to keep going. We need this effect more. Once isn't enough. We have to rebuild. We must do it again.
Well, if you didn't notice, it doesn't have a once per turn clause on it. So hypothetically, if you have the material, you could fire it multiple times. Welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! 2, my friend.
Let's go. By using one XZ monster you control as material, transfer its materials. If you get a monster and it has to battle. So battle just includes attacking, or does it include bumping into another?
It just has to attack and then survive. So hypothetically, if you attack directly, that would work. You could attack into your opponent's monster that's in defense position.
Yeah.
Maybe you take some damage to your life points, but that still counts as battling. So that you could like bop their monster and still summon Zeus. Yeah.
And after, okay, so that means Zeus isn't attacking the turn it comes down, pretty much.
Correct. It's not attacking the turn it comes down because you have to attack first. So it's coming in the second main phase.
Yep. But everything,
which is a bit of a balancing mechanism for it.
Everything has haste after turn 1, so it's not like this seems hard. 2 materials send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. So this is happening second main. So you had to get a monster to attack, battle, survive, then you attach this, then you can blow up everything. So it sounds like you wouldn't really want that effect if your opponent had nothing on the field. So what you need is a small thing that you can attack and survive, and then do this to blow up all the other big things, would be like the value-y way of playing it.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Well, at least that's tricky. That can be tricky. You might even have opponents who are smart enough to not leave a little piece around that your other XZ monster could attack and survive.
Yep. I will say, similar to 101, people knowing that this card exists, they will play around it in such a way that it is harder for them to bring this guy out.
Yep. Once per turn, another card you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect. Seems like a thing that could happen. You can attach one card from the hand, deck, or extra deck. That's pretty wild. And then it goes to the graveyard, right? So you can kind of cheat a card from your deck into your graveyard in a way.
Yeah, you can.
Nasty. It's utility. It's got tutoring attached to it, by God. How messed up is it? It's messed up. Everything's messed up. How messed up is it? There's a few alarm bells there of like just getting to tutor the right card into your graveyard, but I don't feel like that's an unheard of effect in Yu-Gi-Oh! I feel like I've seen more cards that do that.
Yeah, I'll help you out a bit. That second effect, or that last effect rather, it's more added value than anything. It's because a lot of it's not really in your control because it says opponent's card effect. So it can happen, but it's not super likely. Yeah. I would not say it's more of a bonus than anything. You're mainly playing this because it's a board wipe.
Right. So analyzing it on that, I think it seems like it seems situational, and like we kind of talked about, you can play in a way to get around it, which is usually a sign of a healthy card, and keep it like at least contained. I think it's a good role player. I think it's an awesome thing to be threatening. It might even be one of those things where you put it in your extra deck and it has a spot in there because why not? But then eventually you take it out of your extra deck, but the opponent plays around it anyway. That's kind of a got 'em if there's a little more value to having another spot in your extra deck. But yeah, I can definitely see like this probably resulted in some mega blowouts in its first month of existence, and then people adapted. So I'm gonna say awesome, good role playing, solid, powerful card like many of them are. I'm gonna say not banned.
You would be correct, CGB. Zeus is an absurd card. There was a point where I think a lot of people wanted this card to get hit to some capacity. It was restricted at times. I believe it was restricted both in the Asian territories and I think on Master Duel, our online client. I don't think it ever was in the TCG though. If I'm wrong, someone correct me. But it was never banned. It was never banned, so you are correct. Zeus is just a very phenomenal card. It's a payoff for playing Xyz-focused archetypes, because obviously, some decks are more Synchro-focused, some are more Xyz-focused. There are some Xyz monsters I've shown you that, for Dracossack's one of them. Dracossack says, while you have the token, it can't be killed by battle. There's a few of these types of cards, so some of the best examples to bring out Zeus is that you would purposefully, whatever one of these your deck can facilitate, you would overlay into one of these cards that says cannot be destroyed by battle, ram into one of your opponent's monsters, it's going to survive, and then in the second main phase, you bring out Zeus, clear the whole board. If you're able to get more material under Zeus, which isn't too difficult, then you're able to have a board wipe that you can use once during your turn to clean up, And then if your opponent starts doing stuff on their turn, it's a quick effect, so you can nuke the board on their turn too. And then you just have a 3,000 guy on the field that you can smack your opponent with on the next turn. And another cool thing about this card is that it says, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. This plays around a lot of different protection style of effects. So for instance, Dracossack says it can't be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Sending to the graveyard is not the same thing as destroying. So it's actually it's a semantic difference that actually basically plays around almost every type of protection in the game. So basically when Zeus resolves, it's going to nuke everything with it. But phenomenal card. You can be very cheeky with it, and if you take control of your opponent's monster, that's an Xyz monster, let's say you use Big Eye, right, and take control of your opponent's Xyz monster, you can attack with their Xyz monster and then put Zeus over their Xyz monster so then they wouldn't get it back during like the end of the... I know Big Eye takes it permanently, but some things are only once per for the end of the turn. So you can then permanently like basically remove their monster and get a Zeus out of it, which is very funny. So a lot of really cool tricks that you can do with this card. And yeah, I think it's a phenomenal card to have in the game. Might be a bit OP, to be honest, but it's fun.
It's also called Zeus. It's supposed to be good.
It is. It's supposed to be good. It's supposed to, a lot of people like Zeus. It's a fun card. And speaking of fun cards, we're going to end on the card, CGB, that was the foil to Tier Element. I know how much you love Tier Element and how much you loved learning about it. We're going to show you the card that they printed that was supposed to be the harbinger of the demise of Tier Element. So let's see what you think about this guy.
Obviously, it got banned. I don't need to read it. They had to keep Tier Elements at Tier 1. They couldn't just nuke everybody's collection into the ground.
Oh, no. I'll help you. This was printed after Tier Element was on its like giant tear throughout Yu-Gi-Oh's history. So think about it from the business side of things.
Oopsie daisy. Okay. They already got their money from those suckers.
There you go. Now you're thinking.
Kashtira Arise-Heart. A dark monster with 3,000 attack and 3,000 defense that is rank 7 machine XZ effect. 3 level 7 monsters. 3 of them. It's the first time we've done 3. Okay. Once per turn.
I'm going to let you know that's not going to matter.
Great. Once per turn, you can also XZ summon this by using one Kashtira monster you control. If an effect of Kashtira Shangri-La was successfully activated this turn. Okay, great.
For the purposes of this, just assume you only need one Kashtira monster to overlay and Xyz summon this guy. So you don't need the 3. You can just use 1.
And that they all exist and aren't hard to get.
Correct.
Okay. Transfer its materials to this card. How many materials does it usually have?
So if you were to summon it with 3 level 7s, which is not hard, it would have 3 materials. But if you're just using any other Kashtira monster, it would probably just have 1. But that may not matter when you read the rest of the card.
Okay. Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. Perfect. Once per chain, each time a card is banished, attach one banished card to this card as material. Once per turn, quick effect. You can detach 3 materials from this card, then target one card on the field to banish it face down. And I remember what you said about face down banishing. Okay.
What a better way to take care of Tier Element to make it that everything gets banished instead of going to the graveyard, huh?
And it says the graveyard. I'm assuming they mean both graveyards.
Correct.
So now anything you send to the graveyard is also material?
Correct.
And anything sent to their graveyard is material. And then once per turn, you can just use the material to banish everything?
Correct.
This was Anakin. This was bringing balance to the Force. They learned
Sure, let's go with that.
They learned nothing. This is, I 100% want the meme of like the lightsaber to the younglings with this card. Because I bet when this card showed up after Tier Elements was already gone, all the rest of the cards were like, what the hell did we do to deserve this? Then they got to deal with this. The enemy was already gone, and now this is here to just absolutely murder everything. Think of the younglings. any way you get this out, right? Whether it has 1 material or 3 materials. I mean, it's nice if it has 3 materials already, right? And then you just banish something on the spot, gone, goodbye. But just get this out and do anything feeds it. Doing anything feeds it. And then it's just an ongoing removal engine. So assuming that you can chain off a bunch of cool things the turn you play it, you can remove all their board. And then they have to deal with it without using any graveyardy stuff, or it just keeps happening. Oppressive. Horrible.
Okay.
What?
Okay.
This was the answer. There were 2 paths, all right? One was we ban all this stuff, and the other was we just continue to nuke our game. And
they did both. That's the best part.
I mean, they had a plan. They had a direction, and somebody,
they had a plan, all right.
Somebody was like, we can't. I mean, it might have been the players, but at least at some point they were like, we can't do that. And I bet, like, my gut says ban this mother. My gut says this didn't last long either. They were in an era where they went too far on the design side, and as they released it, they realized how far down that path they went, and they banned their way back to what they considered some kind of normal. I feel like this had to go too. This is the nastiest card, and I know that the level 9 thing, I knew it was nasty. I just thought maybe it was solvable by other cards and that it was a bait. I thought it was so nasty it was a bait. This just feels like somebody had an idea of what they were doing, and they, in the middle, had to change course. And this feels, in Magic terms, if there are any Magic players, this feels like Omnath at the end of Fire Design. There were 1 million cards that were busted AF, and they had to ban all of them to return to a sense of normalcy. And at the last, there was one last standing card that came out like a year after Fire Design started that was obviously designed and missed, and they had to ban that card too, even though they tried not to. They were like, it's gonna be fine, and then they still had to ban it because all their designing was just messed up. The whole landscape was messed up and had to be nuked. I think this card got nuked too. My gut reaction says this card is banned. Banned. Yes, banned.
So Arise-Heart is, like I said, was the answer to Tearlament. They'd released Tearlament, it ran rampant throughout the format, and then a set or two later, they bring us the Kashtiras, or at least the full suite of Kashtira support, because we got some prior to this anyway. And oh boy, Arise-Heart is a card that people have feelings about. So at this point too, they've already nuked Tearlament on the ban list multiple times. But in addition to that, once Tearlament was basically out of the game because it had just gotten hit to the point where it was unplayable, and Kashtira is also just rearing its ugly head, this card became the entire game. This was the card that every deck had to build around. Because if you weren't playing against Kashtira, if you weren't playing Kashtira, you had to figure out how your deck was going to beat Arise-Heart. Because this card single-handedly gate-kept so many decks from being playable during this time. This is very recent. This is only within the past few years. That it went from everyone playing Tearlament to everyone playing Kashtira. And there were a few other decks during this time that could compete with Kashtira. But Kashtira, by far and away, was just so dominant, and it's solely because Arise-Heart is just an absolute menace. The fact that everything's getting banished, the fact that it can just one-shot stuff by just taking off those materials, the fact that it's always gaining materials, the fact that you have to go on a side quest after any single card is banished to attach stuff to Arise-Heart was so annoying, and people were so sick of activating Arise-Heart to keep putting materials under it. This card is just an absolute menace. This is an atrocious design. Yes, I understand this was trying to solve the issue that was Tearlament, but my God, like, the thing about Tearlament was it was really interactive. There was a lot of, like, fun interaction you could have with your opponent. You saw some of the games. Like, you saw how much was going on, even though the number of turns in a game was very low. The amount of plays within those turns was quite high. You just slap down Arise-Heart, and it's just like, good luck, like, have fun dealing with this, and no deck could really compete with it aside from a very few amounts. So Arise-Heart was just an absolute menace, and people were just begging, and I mean begging, for this card to get hit. And it took a couple ban lists for them to finally just delete this card from existence, because Oh my God. This card was just so frustrating. It finally did get banned. You are correct. It's still banned. I don't think they're ever going to bring it back because this card is just... This is almost everything wrong with card design, yes. In my opinion.
I bet there was turn 1 scoops to this card.
Yep. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yep.
100%.
Turn 1, draw your card, look at board, scoop.
It's like if you didn't have the out for it, you were just not really doing... It's kind of like Calamities in a way, but honestly, a lot worse for several other reasons. But just horribly designed card. Like, this card is just not fun in the slightest. And I understand the role it was trying to serve. And again, they're trying to make their money selling the new set. Cool. But God, this card is a fucking nightmare. Oh my God.
Dude, it reads
but
like
you got
one.
it, though.
Holy crap.
It does. You did really good. I think you only missed like 1 or 2 this entire episode. Congrats. It looks like Xyz monsters and you meld pretty well.
Hey, I guess so. I got really scared when you said new summoning because, God, how many can there be? But yeah, these the Xyz are all right.
What do you think about these versus synchros? You like these better?
It's hard to pick my favorite. You know, it's like picking my favorite child, and I love all of them really. But you know what? Kashtira just took my heart. Just absolutely took it. The Arise-Heart is one of the dumbest cards I've ever seen anywhere. Absolutely.
You are not the only person to think that. You are not the only person to think that. So guys, that's going to wrap it up for another video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Let's go ahead and shout the patrons for all of their continued support. So shoutouts to Shout1317, Tim00x3, MBT Play Medolce, Moto, Cameron L. Smith, The Synchro Guy, Pony Stark, Dan the Man Hoban, Little Fadeleaf, Draconic, Dylan Rare Hunter, JW11860, Flannel Daddy, literally all of the guinea pigs, Cheeks McLapperty, Stolfin Amethyst, MBT Cancel by all community soon, Cancel by all committee soon, Cancel by all players soon, Wonder Waffle, MBT and Nimnims, One Boxer Brief Fueled Knight of Passion, Daniel Howell, Electrician of the Ice Barrier, Astro Random, Arco, and the Nova 129. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and we will see you next time.